Hey Galveston dieters, it's Mary Claire, and I am here to talk to you about the second arm or component of the Galveston diet, which is the elimination of inflammatory foods from your diet. And so we're going to talk specifically about what you really should be focusing on, cutting back on, or completely eliminating, and the science, and a little bit of the science behind it. I don't want to overwhelm you, but I certainly could dive into it more if you wanted to, probably in a little private coaching. So, number one, this should be no shocker, is sugar, right? Sugar. So according to a review in the Journal of Endocrinology, and I've got my notes here, so what happens when we eat too much glucose-containing sugar? The excess glucose in our body can't process quickly enough and can increase levels of pro-inflammatory messengers called cytokine. So when we OD ourselves on sugar, and I'm talking soda, snack bars, candy, baked sweets, coffee with sweeteners, you know, those fancy coffees we buy that are loaded with sugar. Sugar, also suppresses the effectiveness of our white blood cells' germ-killing ability, which weakens our immune system and make us more susceptible to infectious disease. So, sugar in moderation is probably okay, but the amount that the average American eats is so much more than we actually need, and it's so much more than we can actually truly process in such a short period of time because the sugar is so processed and refined. It causes a spike in our blood sugars, and then all of the inflammatory components go up. Okay, so by eliminating that, now how do we eliminate that? Well, you can just cut out eating sugar altogether. However, if you just switch out the simple carbohydrates for the complex, those complex carbohydrates have a lot of fiber, and if you add fat, then it's going to slow down the absorption and have a more steady state release of that glucose into your system, which will have a dramatic effect. So there was a study in the Journal of Nutrition that looked at two groups of people on equal calorie diets. So they ate 1,800 calories, they ate 1,800 calories. And the overweight participants who ate a low GI, who ate lower levels of simple sugars versus the people who ate higher levels of simple sugars, same calories, okay, the people on the high sugar had much higher C-reactive protein, which is an important inflammatory marker. Sugar. Be careful, watch out, okay? Avoid simple sugars at all costs. Stick with complex carbohydrates. Stay away from simple. All right, number 2, vegetable oil. Are all vegetable oils bad? Not necessarily, but when we became aware of the artery clogging and dangerous effects of the trans fats, okay, then manufacturers started injecting their products with, or start frying foods in more vegetable oils like soy, corn, sunflower, safflower, palm oil. What happens is these oils, the soy, the sunflower, the safflower, and the palm, are actually super high in an inflammatory fat called omega-6. And low in the anti-inflammatory fat called omega-3. You're going to see a lot of this, that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. We should be eating a probably equal ratio of both, but in the typical American diet, it's 20-1. Okay, so we really should be looking for things that are high in, so many things that are laden with vegetable oils are actually high in omega-6. We're looking to really get that omega-3 ratio around, omega-6 to omega-3 around 1-1, but the average American, it is 20-1. Omega-6 is inflammatory, omega-3 is not, okay? Number 3, fried foods. Okay, number 1, because they're fried in the vegetable oils that are have the high omega-6s, right? However, there's something else. When we cook things at a super high temperature, and basically you create something called an advanced glycation end product, or an AGE. And it happens when products are pasteurized, dried, smoked, fried, grilled, or cooked at super high temperatures. And some people eat a whole lot of this stuff. Some people grill things super crispy every single night. Some people fry every single night. And so when you eat all these AGEs, you have ultra high levels of inflammatory markers in your bloodstream. And if you cut them out, they go down. Third thing, processed flour. Processed flour. So refined wheat flours have been stripped of their slow digesting fiber and nutrients, which means your body's going to break it down. So basically turns it into a simple sugar, spikes your insulin levels, creates a pro-inflammatory response. However, if you switch out that refined for a diet rich in whole grains, you have much lower concentrations of the inflammatory markers. Okay. All right, so the next thing that we should think about cutting back or eliminating is dairy. Common culprits, of course, milk, butter, cheeses. What happens is, even though a moderate intake of yogurt can decrease inflammation because of the probiotics that are found in a lot of the yogurts that are gut healing, dairy does have saturated fat, which can be inflammatory. And then about 1 in 4 Americans have a dairy sensitivity. And so you should know if you are sensitive to dairy by this point in your life, and you need to try to avoid it. So if you're worried about, it's interesting, for those of us that are women, most of us doing the Galveston diet are women. There was a study in 2014 in the British Medical Journal that did not show a correlation between people who had a lot of dairy and fewer bone fractures. So a lot of people think they have to eat dairy to keep their bones strong for the calcium. That actually is not the case. Okay. The next thing, and this was hard for me, artificial sweeteners. I was addicted. I kept it in my purse in a little tiny Ziploc in case we went somewhere for my coffee and we didn't have it. I now drink black coffee with no sweetener, which took about 2 weeks for me to get used to, but I was addicted. So a lot of people ask me about, and I'm talking about the no sugar added products, the diet soft drinks. There was a study published in Nature magazine in 2014 that found that artificial sweetener consumption in both mice and humans enhances the risk of glucose intolerance because it alters our gut microbiome. So we aren't supposed to be eating these chemicals. Our bodies were not developed to know how to process them. They taste sweet on the tongue, which is why we like them. However, when it gets into our gut, the natural, bacteria there are like, what is this? And it actually causes some problems down the road. We also think that certain artificial sweeteners trigger a chemical in the brain that makes you think that it's real sugar, and it increases your insulin, which also causes problem. And stevia is not really in this because it is a natural product that happens to taste sweet, so you don't have the gut biome issues, so that's good. However, we do think that it causes some insulin issues. So, if you absolutely have to have something, you may want to consider stevia, but if you're kind of in a rut and not losing the weight, you may want to cut it out, just go straight to black for your drinks. Artificial additives, guys, the colors that we put into things to make children want to eat them is horrible. Breakfast cereals are the worst. So artificial just means it's not found in nature. It's not found in nature. Red Fruit Loops are not found in nature. They taste good, but they are certainly not good for you. Your body doesn't have a way to process it. So when we put these artificial chemicals that are altered so that we will want them more because of their visual appeal or their taste, your gut, does not know what to do with it. And so inflammation is what it's going to do. It's going to try to break it down by starting off an inflammatory reaction. It is recognized as foreign in the gut. And when things are recognized as foreign in our bodies, it sets off a chain reaction. Our immune system gets upregulated to try to fight off the invader, okay? A meta-analysis in the Journal of Alternative Therapies in Health and Medicine found that the immune system attempts to defend the body from these synthetic colorants, which activates the inflammatory cascade. There's also things like emulsifying agents to change the texture of things, to thicken foods. It also can disrupt bacterial makeup of the gut, leading to inflammation and weight gain in animals. If you suffer from bloating, if you're always bloated, if your gut is always out there, cut these things out for 2 or 3 weeks. Cut out the artificial sweeteners, cut out everything artificial, and see what happens. I think your gut's going to be a lot happier. Okay. So, next thing, conventional grain-fed meat. So, I love meat and I eat plenty of it. However, some of the ways that the producers are handling the livestock. They feed them grain, but they also put things like hormones and stuff in the grain to try to get the animals to be bigger, make more milk, to have bigger muscles, which is, to give them more of a yield. They also load them up with antibiotics for the obvious reasons. So it keeps the animals from getting sick because they're stuck in feedlots, and so disease is transferred a lot easier. So the antibiotics help cut down on the sick animals, which is understandable. But we're eating meats that have much higher inflammatory 6 from that corn and soy diet. So what we eat gets deposited in our muscles, in our body, in our bones. And so when these animals are fed the grain-fed diets, the corn and things, they're much higher in omega-6 than the healthy omega-3s. So how do you eat your meat? You want to try to find meat that is wild raised or grass-fed, the way that kind of they were meant to do in nature. There's a company, I do not get kickbacks, called Butcher Box that uses local ranchers and local farms to get their meats, and that are all certified as no grain fed. So they're just running free range is what they call it. So if you do like to grill, there's a trick that you can do. You can add a little bit of lemon juice to your meats, and the acid can act as an antioxidant to protect you from those carcinogens that you might get from grilling. So just a little FYI. The next thing is processed meats: bacon, hot dogs, bologna, sausage, and jerky. So processed meats tend to be the worst of both worlds. They're typically made from the red meats that are high in saturated fats. They contain very high levels of advanced glycation end products. And they are sometimes mystery meats, so they're kind of injected with a slurry of preservatives, colorings, and artificial flavors that also register them as foreign attackers to our immune system. We're not supposed to be eating that stuff. The next thing, gluten from store-bought bread. Store-bought bread made from refined flour. Many of the breads on the market can go from flour and yeast to bake bread in just a few hours, but they shorten the period of fermentation, which causes a decrease in the amount of starch and gluten, and so it kind of pre-digests it for us. So basically, experts believe that the increase of gluten sensitivity in Americans is due to this process, because they kind of pre-break down things before when our bodies were supposed to do it. So either way you look at it, store-bought breads, because of the refined flour, because of the corn oils high in omega-6 that they are typically baked with, because of the way that they process the yeast, are probably not in your favor. If you're gonna do bread, you wanna do fresh baked bread with yeast that you can buy at the store, and just do it on your own. Sourdough, however, has some really, because the way that they make the sourdough is surprising, and that it provides healthy probiotics that can be good. So if you're going to have bread, have fresh homemade sourdough. It's much better for you. The next thing, this might be sad for a few of you, but a second round of alcohol. So we know that alcohol, especially wine in limited amounts, can have some health benefits, both cardiovascular, etc., some for weight loss even. However, a lot of people don't stop at one, and so when you're going over 1 glass a night, or when you're going 2 and 3 and 4, definitely we see an increase. I mean, that's what a hangover is. It's just horrible inflammation everywhere in our body. So of course, when we break down alcohol in our liver, the toxic byproducts make our liver sick. It makes us have headaches, nausea, everything. It should be no surprise about this. Everything in moderation. Okay. Trans fats. So what are trans fats? Think about it: margarine and shortening, baked goods like donuts, cookies, muffins, non-dairy coffee creamers, frozen pizza frosting, partially hydrogenated oils. These are the things that are solid at room temperature. Okay, solid at room temperature. Again, hits the gut. Gut doesn't know what to do with it. It senses a foreign object, and so it starts damaging the cells and causing inflammation in the gut. So, one of the worst things in the world is Dairy Queen's blizzards. They have some of the highest levels of trans fat. And then, in case you're a blizzard fan.